You're listening to the Shout Podcast, the official health and well-being podcast from the Firefighters Charity.
Hello, and welcome to this, the first ever Shout Podcast, the official health and well-being podcast from the Firefighters Charity. My name's Kim Robson, and I'm delighted to have been asked by the charity to host its first venture into the world of podcasting. Why me? Well, I've seen the charity from pretty much every side. My partner John is a firefighter, and I've been supported by the charity myself after I took a bit of a tumble on the ski slopes a few years ago. I've also done a few fundraising events and challenges in the past too. So I know a bit about what the Firefighters Charity does, and I've also seen for myself what incredible work our fire and rescue services do day in, day out, under normal circumstances, and, as we're seeing at the moment, during times of crisis too. So really it was a no-brainer when the team at the charity asked me to host the Shout podcast. And I hope over the next 10 episodes, you'll join me as we take a closer look at the health and well-being of the fire community in this country and the things we can all do to live healthier and happier. Every fortnight, the Shout podcast will delve into some of the issues affecting our mental health, physical health and social well-being. From dealing with life in lockdown to eating healthily and tips on getting a better night's sleep. We'll also look at some of the things that are unique to those who live and work within the blue light community, including issues such as the psychological impact of working in and around traumatic situations. We'll deal with some tough topics, but we'll also have some fun along the way too. The Shout podcast team is waiting to hear from you. So if you've got ideas for topics you'd like us to cover, if you'd like to share your experiences or story with us, or if you want to tell us what fundraising challenge you've set yourself in lockdown, you can do so through the Firefighters Charity website. So onwards to our first podcast.
Coming up.
With the world still in the grips of the coronavirus, we talked to Cailli Anderson, a crew commander in the control room at Surrey Fire and Rescue, whose role, like so many others, has had to change over recent months. From answering 999 calls to helping with a temporary morgue at Surrey Fire and Rescue headquarters. It's not been easy for Cailli, who's also a regular donor and a volunteer service coordinator for the charity. Having spent time herself in isolation, Cailli told Sophie Pearce from the marketing team how coronavirus is impacting fire service key workers in a whole host of ways. I also spoke earlier this week to Sharon Bailey, the charity's Director of Beneficiary Services, to find out what support the charity is offering during the coronavirus outbreak and how it can help you if you need it today. Later, we'll take a closer look at the importance of talking during times of social distancing. And we'll see what all the fuss is about with the new Fire Family Challenge. But first, to the front line of our key workers' fight against coronavirus, and to Sophie Pearce from the charity's marketing team, who spoke to Control Room Crew Commander Cailli Anderson.
Thank you so much for talking to us, Cailli. So you've been working for Surrey Fire and Rescue Service since 2015, most recently as Crew Commander of Control. Can you tell us a little bit about what it's been like over the last few weeks? I understand that you've been working alongside a temporary morgue set up to help in the wake of the pandemic.
Yeah, so the temporary morgue was opened up at the headquarters site. And although the control room moved from there a couple of years ago, we still man the cameras at the gates. So obviously we were told that the morgue would be opening and everything, and they sort of set it all up and that. But I can't remember if it was my watch on when the first ones turned up, but certainly very early on, a sort of unmarked, very ominous looking black van turned up at the gate, and you could sort of see it on the camera.
How frequently would the vans turn up?
Quite frequently in the end. I mean, it's last week it was closed down and moved to Headley Court in Leatherhead. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, several times a day, or like in the middle of the night as well. That was another one, because obviously we're there 24/7. So, the phone goes off for the barriers and there's another van that's turned up.
It's clearly not an everyday occurrence in your role. How do you even begin to deal with something like this?
Yeah, it was very strange, because until then it seemed very far away, the COVID stuff, because no one had really known anyone who'd passed away or anything, and it just didn't seem like something that was happening near to us, but actually it was quite upsetting.
Has it changed the way that you answer 999 calls?
Do you know what? In the control room, we just get on with it. It's like you kind of become accustomed to just going, oh, this is happening now. Okay. And because it happens on a daily basis sometimes, you get weird and wonderful incidents and things, or you take a phone call from someone and you're just like, what is going on?
And how has the pandemic affected your work on a day-to-day basis?
So when we get into the building, we have a sanitizer and a thermometer. So we sanitise our hands and then take our temperature, and then obviously if temperature's over the norm, you step back outside and let someone know that you won't be coming to work.
Wow. Has it caught the virus for anyone doing that, or is it just a precautionary measure?
No, do you know what? Everyone's been fine. I actually had to isolate right at the beginning just because I had a couple of symptoms, but I wasn't particularly ill. And then a couple of people since have had to isolate because of like partners. But in our building, actually, we've barely been affected by it, which is really good.
How else has the coronavirus epidemic affected the way you and your team work?
It's actually quite frustrating at times, because every call we take now, we have to ask if there's any signs of COVID or if people are isolating on the premises and all that kind of thing. But actually, we deal with a lot of other agencies who aren't gathering that information as well. For example, there's all those kind of care lines where there's linked smoke alarms and things. So they'll pass us through a smoke alarm, potentially for sheltered housing or something, where you could come across a fair few people. And they actually can't answer us whether there's any suspected COVID cases, whether anyone's isolating. And it's quite frustrating because obviously the crews, they'll put on their PPE anyway, but they kind of want that heads up if there is anything, or if we can say with confidence, there's no COVID at this building, you're fine to kind of carry on with your job without having to investigate that first.
So what do crews have to do if you're unable to give them that information about the places they're attending and the risk of the disease?
They just have to put their PPE on, gloves and masks and everything, and just ask the resident when they get there, stay back, ask them, find out a bit more before they actually start going into any premises. It adds like a whole other level to all the calls, sort of having to remember to ask about it and then tell the crews what people say, and it's very strange. Have
you been concerned at all about your own or your team's mental health during this time?
So I do suffer from depression and anxiety anyway myself, so I'm quite aware of mental health problems and stuff. So I just make sure that I ask my watch if they're all right, let them know that, if they need a break out of the room at any point, if anything gets too overwhelming, that's absolutely fine. They just have to say, I'm quite happy for them to just take 5 minutes and just kind of compose themselves. And I'm quite happy to talk to them. I always tell them that because I understand, it's quite easy for them to talk to me rather than trying to explain how they're feeling to someone who doesn't really understand mental health.
And what about you? How are you looking after yourself?
Work-wise, our watch is really close and we're almost like friends rather than colleagues, which is lovely. So we just share jokes and stuff and, just kind of chat about light, nice topics and have a laugh and stuff when we can. But out of work, I'm lucky I've got a dog and a horse. So I've been outside a lot, walking the dog and riding and things, which is lovely. So I'm quite lucky in that respect that I've got that outlet. Mainly I just miss being able to actually visit my family. That's obviously a big thing. And a couple of my friends that I'm quite close with, we'd see each other quite a lot. But apart from that, being able to go to work is probably what's kept my mental health positive.
And on top of all that you do on a day-to-day basis, you're also a service coordinator for the Firefighters charity. How did that come about?
Well, it was actually the current volunteer manager, he was the coordinator previously, and he just had so much work to do with the volunteers and everything that he'd step back. I thought actually it's just kind of an extension of that really, and it's still, because it involves the volunteers quite a lot because they come and help out at events and things like that, and I just thought actually being in control, it's quite easy to get in touch with the stations, to sort of, not pressure them to do events, but to strongly suggest that they would like to hold events for the charity. So actually it was a really good position to be in because you're talking to the stations all day, every day.
Yeah.
So I thought actually it would be a really good thing to do.
What's your favourite thing to do with the charity that brings you the most satisfaction and most enjoyment?
Do you know what? I love the car washes when I'm able to go along to them because the crews always have such a good laugh. And especially, so Leatherhead have been brilliant the last few years. They've always done a March and a September car wash, and they'll ring their local radio station to get advertising, and they have such a good laugh. Domino's Pizza donate lunch for us, and they'll, have the music blasting out, and it's just brilliant. It's just such great fun.
And all raising money for charity.
Exactly, yeah. And actually that's the best thing, is at the end of the day opening the buckets and counting out the money.
Thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate talking to you, and thanks for everything you're doing. Look after each other and stay safe.
As social distancing looks set to be with us for some time to come, and with the firefighters charity forced to temporarily close the doors of its centres to those needing physical and psychological rehabilitation, how is the charity actually able to support its beneficiaries during this time? Earlier this week, I spoke to Sharon Bailey, the charity's Director of Beneficiary Services, to find out what support is available to those needing it today. It looks like social distancing in one form or another is going to be with us for the long term now. So can you tell me what is and isn't the firefighters charity able to do during this time?
Well, sadly, we've had to close our residential centres, and obviously the health, safety and well-being of our beneficiaries and our employees remains our top priority. But our virtual doors, so to speak, remain open. We have a small team of practitioners working remotely to support beneficiaries, so we're able to provide support such as advice and information, financial support, telephone contact, and also remote support through video consultations and exercise prescriptions. We're also making quite regular contact where there's a need, some social contact for our beneficiaries. So our nursing services lead has been having video and telephone conversations with some of our nursing clients, and our communities development lead has also been establishing a contact support system for those who are socially isolated.
So it sounds to me like, the charity is still very much still operating. And if someone's listening to this that has something they're worried about, whatever it is, they should still be getting in touch.
Absolutely. Our support line is open 9 till 5, Monday to Friday. And if somebody contacts us, then they'll be able to speak to a practitioner, and we'll work with them to understand what the needs are and help try and find a solution to meet that need. And that sometimes might include support from the charity itself, or it might be another organisation who's best placed to meet their needs. So, for example, beneficiary contacts us and they've got problems around psychological health, we might be able to discuss some of the practical tools and resources we have on our website, or we might help them get access to the Big White Wall. The Big White Wall's a digital mental health platform, and we fund access to that so people can access peer support, guided learning resources, or we can refer them for one-to-one live therapy with a Big White Wall counsellor. The solution really just depends on the need.
It's a really strange world that we're in at the moment. Everything is so different, and I can only imagine it must be quite frustrating for you, being obviously used to helping people face to face and then suddenly turning on its head and having to do things very differently.
I don't know if I would call it frustrating. I think it's more of a learning experience. It's an absolute massive change to how we've traditionally provided our services, but our practitioners have been fantastic and they've really adjusted to the change. And it's given us the opportunity to think beyond the walls of our residential centres and explore new ways of supporting beneficiaries. So we've always been known for residential support programmes, but not everybody needs something residential and not everybody can access this. So this has given us time to help think about where we need to go and develop our digital services, and we're continuing to develop these. So to give you an example of that, we're using Attend Anywhere, which is a digital consultation platform, and we provide physical rehabilitation services through that and use that in conjunction with an electronic exercise prescription app. And our feedback so far has been really positive. We managed to get beneficiaries the support they need and in a really timely manner. So we're now trying to build on the use of Attend Anywhere, and we've got plans to use this to support other needs such as welfare support, psychological support, and we're just currently developing that at the moment.
So you've talked about the services that you already offer and that you've had to adapt, but have you introduced anything new?
Probably the one thing that springs to mind, there's lots of things new we've introduced, such as some of the resources that you can find on our website. But I think one of the things that really springs to mind is our first virtual Living Well groups. Prior to COVID-19, we were running Living Well groups across the communities, which is for retired beneficiaries to be able to touch base with one another, have talks from different people. And there was a lot around social contact. And the other week we did try the first virtual Living Well group, which went very well, and we will be doing some more of those.
It sounds like you're making excellent progress with working in a completely different way that you used to. Obviously, the website is still there. So what kind of information and support can people get through that form of media at the moment?
There's a wide range of information that's on our website. So we've created a coronavirus support hub, and the hub contains a range of resources, including links to government advice, articles written by our practitioners, video exercise sessions, access to an app portal, and we've also got some guided video relaxation sessions there. So the practitioner team, they're always constantly looking at innovative ways to share their expertise and help more people, and we do share those resources on social media as well.
What impact do you think that the coronavirus outbreak might actually have on the fire services community? So for those working on the front line and their families, and also for those that may have had the disease or even lost people through it?
I think over the coming weeks and months, we're going to see a variety of different needs. I think there'll be some people who are experiencing financial hardship and they may need some support to get back on their feet. Others may be recovering from the virus, and we do expect to see more in the way of physical health needs. So people experiencing fatigue, muscle weakness, respiratory problems and sleep disturbances. I think we'll also see the secondary impact of COVID-19. So things like elective surgery has been cancelled, so we may have people who are living in pain. And for those in lockdown, their whole lifestyle has changed and may have a negative impact on their health. I think moving forward, one of the biggest things we will see, though, is the impact on psychological health. And I think that's especially for those that are working on the front line or maybe those that are socially isolated. We also know that many fire and rescue service personnel often have another key worker in the family, and so the risks are higher, and particularly for those roles who they're constantly facing this frequent exposure to death and dying.
So what would be your advice for anyone who's worrying about any of these things right now?
I think it's about reaching out for support, and support can come from a number of different areas. So it might be family, friends, work colleagues, or organisations such as ours. I would encourage people to look at our website, www.firefighterscharity.org.uk, or just pick up the phone, call us on 0800 389 8820 and speak with one of our practitioners. I think it's also important to let people know that there are other organisations to help, especially in crisis. And one of the ones that I think it's important for our beneficiaries to know about is Our Front Line, which is a new initiative supported by the Royal Foundation. And they're providing mental health support to NHS workers, carers and the Blue Light emergency services. And just by texting Blue Light to 85258 or calling 116 123, our beneficiaries will be able to have a text or phone conversation with a trained crisis volunteer.
Sharon, it's amazing the things that you're doing and the way we're able to move technology on so quickly, and that really the help is out there. What you're saying is you can still get it. You can call, you can go on the website. There are so many ways to get in touch. And although it might be a different communication line that people are used to, it is there and it's working, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, we've seen some positive results as well as to how we can help people differently. So I do encourage people to get in touch.
And what about you? How have you found lockdown? What's been your toughest challenge?
Oh, I would say it's been a bit of a roller coaster of a journey. Good days and some not so good days. I think for me, the hardest bit is not having the face-to-face contact, so family, friends and work colleagues. But it's also about the challenges of readjusting family life. So whilst my husband's still going out to work, my son's back from university, my daughter's been preparing for GCSEs, but of course that's cancelled now. So we're all trying to find space to work, study and of course relax. And I would say at times it challenged our internet connection. But the positives are we've got a lot more family time together.
Got any top tips if it all gets a little bit too much?
I would say the top tip is just take time for yourself. Most importantly, be kind to yourself. There's going to be days where everything seems overwhelming. And I would just encourage people to look after their health, whether that's regular exercise, watching what you eat and drink, or maybe just taking time out to have some relaxation time or be creative. I don't think anybody really truly knows what's going to happen in the weeks and months ahead, but I think we will find our new normal. It's just going to take a little time.
We all like a good natter, but when we can't get out and about and we have to rely on technology to keep in touch, it isn't always easy. However, Claire Hannaford, the Firefighters Charity's community lead, believes this is the perfect time to pick up the phone.
They say it's good to talk. During these days of lockdown, where an unknown number of days stretch out ahead of us while we worry about loved ones and what the world is going to be like after all of this, it's never been better to talk. For our key workers continuing to work in different circumstances, those adapting to home working, with or without the extra pressure of homeschooling, or those who are looking to go back to work under social distancing restrictions, we all have one thing in common. Our social interactions are not what they once were. Lack of contact with our loved ones and the loss of normal human interactions that we used to take for granted means that we can feel disconnected from the world. There has been a lot of discussion about the technology available to keep us all connected. FaceTime, Hangouts, House Party and Zoom are just some of the video calling apps that are available to us. These are great, but not everyone has access to the internet or sufficient internet oomph to support these types of apps. Or you might not feel confident downloading apps and setting up accounts to use them. This is why we shouldn't forget about the benefits of the humble phone call. Just a few months ago, phone calls were viewed by some as an old-fashioned means of communication, taking up too much time and encroaching on our busy lives. It was all about the text, Snapchat, TikTok, and group messaging, offering maximum reach for minimum input. Now, phone calls have become an important lifeline for many people and not one to be scoffed at. In these weeks of social distancing, time may no longer be the scarce resource it once was. Not sure what to do with all that time you've been given? Well, why not give someone a ring? Now is the time to phone your family and friends, to make the call that you've been too busy to make, to catch up with those you've been meaning to ring but haven't quite made the time to. Relatives in another country? School friend you've not spoken to despite your best intentions to remain in contact? A retired colleague that you were due to meet up with? No problem. Give them a call. This small action can improve your day as well as that of the person at the end of the phone. It could give you some respite from the barrage of bad news and uncertainty, reduce anxiety, remind you of the value of your friendships and give you both a real lift. Here at the Firefighters Charity, we've always thought checking in with people over the phone is important, but especially so at the moment. Staying socially connected, however you choose to do it, has a proven positive effect on our health and well-being. Studies show that having good social networks and a sense of belonging can be as effective as being physically active. Yes, you heard me right. Giving someone a ring on the phone can have the same positive feelings as going for a run or a session in the gym. Why is this the case? Why does positive social interaction have such a profound effect on us? Well, we have to look to our ancestors for the answer. Humans are social creatures. We evolved living in small groups, reliant on each other's skills and cooperation for our survival. We are genetically hardwired to seek social connections. In the absence of face-to-face contact, a phone call is a great option to maintain our social and family networks. It doesn't have to be a serious conversation for hours at a time. By simply asking someone how they are and genuinely listening to their response, it can help to lighten the load. If you've not spoken to someone for a while, we have no doubt you'll have plenty to catch up on. Don't worry if you find yourself running out of topics. Let's face it, when someone asks what we've been up to, pretty much all of us have the same answer. Not much, stayed home. And bravo for doing so. Get creative with your phone calls. Reminisce about old times. Do a crossword together or create a list of your top 10 places to visit. You could exchange music playlists or book recommendations, or maybe even share your favourite recipes or general hints and tips for keeping calm in these uncertain times. Because we think that it's so important to stay connected, We've been ringing round some of our beneficiaries to check in on them, especially those who may be feeling under pressure, living alone, or who are shielding at the moment. We can talk about our services, but we've also been ringing people just to chat, to talk about the weather, what you've been watching on TV, how your garden's coming on. If you're struggling, feeling lonely or isolated, or just a bit discombobulated, get in touch and we'll call you. Like we said, it's good to talk. So talk to us. Contact us on 0800 389 8820 or make an inquiry online at firefighters.charity.org.uk/support.
The coronavirus outbreak hasn't only brought challenges for us all in regards to our health and well-being, it's also presented the Firefighters Charity with a whole new challenge. How do you fundraise at a time when all outdoor events and challenges have been cancelled? It's a serious dilemma as the charity looks likely to miss out on at least 50% of the income it would usually expect during this time. However, the Fire Family Challenge could be the answer. Community, corporate and events fundraiser Fiona McMillan explains more.
I'm delighted to be able to tell you about our brand new Fire Family Challenge that we have launched. In the light of the current coronavirus situation, many of our traditional fundraising activities have either been put on hold or cancelled. So we've had to get creative and come up with a campaign that everyone can get involved with, no matter where they may be. The Fire Family Challenge is not only about raising vital funds to continue the work that the charity does to support our fire and rescue service beneficiaries across the UK, but it's also really fun thing to do whilst in lockdown. Be it a physical challenge or something more creative, the only limitation is your imagination, and there has been no shortage of that so far. My colleagues and I launched this challenge by taking on activities ourselves. I was involved in a 4x5 kilometre virtual relay with my colleagues Kerry, Natasha and Debbie, where we each ran 5 kilometres and virtually passing the baton to each other. My partner also took on his own challenge of hitting 999 golf shots in 99 minutes, and he managed it with 4 minutes to spare. There have been people climbing their stairs, the equivalent to well-known mountain ranges, garden and drill yard marathons, gardening and baking challenges, and even a chicken Olympics. It's been so good to see many people of all ages getting involved. We've had Noah, who did a goalkeeping challenge, and Imogen, who's doing a keepy up challenge, dancing grannies and triathlon mums. There are loads of great ideas on our website, so go and check it out at firefighters.charity.org.uk/Fire Family Challenge. Register your challenge and set up a Just Giving page, and remember to tag us on social media using the hashtag Fire Family Challenge. A massive thank you to everyone who has taken on a Fire Family Challenge so far. Your support and fundraising is invaluable. And good luck to everyone who's planning their own challenge. Have fun and stay safe.
That's it for episode 1 of the Shout podcast. Coming up in a fortnight, we'll take a look at mindfulness and relaxation and speak to firefighters working on the front line today. So please subscribe through your usual podcast platform to make sure you don't miss it. And until then, take care and stay safe.
You've been listening to the Shout podcast. For more information on the show and how the Firefighters Charity could support you, check out www.firefighters.charity.org.uk.